Hey y'all. So today's objective is parallel and perpendicular lines. So a few definitions. Parallel lines are two lines that never intersect, and parallel lines have the same slope. Perpendicular lines are lines that intersect at a 90-degree angle. Not just lines that intersect, but they intersect specifically at a 90-degree angle. So they form a right angle. And they have the opposite reciprocal slope. Opposite reciprocal. So let me show you what that means. Let's say there's a line and the slope is 3. Then a parallel line is also going to have a slope of 3. And a perpendicular line would have a slope of -1/3, so the opposite. So if it's positive, that means the opposite would be negative, and the reciprocal means it flips. So if it's 3, then the flip would be 1/3. And these symbols mean parallel and perpendicular. So parallel are two lines, perpendicular is that upside down T. Another example, if the slope is -1/2, like if that was the slope we were talking about, parallel lines would have a slope of -1/2. Perpendicular lines would have a slope of +2. The opposite from a negative is a positive, and the reciprocal, if you were to flip this, it would be 2/1, which is 2. So here we go. Write equations that are perpendicular and go through the point. So we've practiced writing equations with a slope and a point. So we're going to do the same thing, except we have to make sure that the equation, in this case, is perpendicular. What that means is the slope has to be the opposite reciprocal. So in this line, y equals 2x. The slope is 2. All right, so here's the slope. If I want a line that's perpendicular, that means I want the opposite reciprocal. So if it's positive, I want a negative. And if it's 2/1, that means I need to flip it to 1/2. So I've changed my slope. Instead of 2, I'm going to use -1/2. And then here's the point. At this point, we're back to what we were doing before. You can see I need to solve for b. I do not have my y-intercept. So I plug it into y equals mx plus b. I solve for b, and I get b equals 4. If you're not sure how to do that, then go back and watch the writing linear equations video. Once I get b, then I can plug it into my equation. Y equals -1/2 x plus 4. What that means, if we were to graph this line and this line, if we took our graphing calculators and we graphed those equations, we would get perpendicular lines intersecting with a 90-degree angle. Example 2. Y equals 1/2 x minus 1. So to get a perpendicular line, I need to take 1/2. I've got to make it negative because I need the opposite, and then I need to flip it, so it would be 2/1. That is where the slope comes in, -2. I have the point 0, 4. Now this one is nice because the point I have is the y-intercept, where x is 0. If you didn't recognize that that is the y-intercept, then you can work it out. But now I know I can just use it, put it into my equation, y equals the slope, and then this is my y-intercept, so I can just do plus 4. -2x plus 4. All right, example 3. Here's the equation, y equals -4x plus 2. I know my slope, -4. For a perpendicular, I need the opposite reciprocal. So I'm going to make, since it's negative, it's going to be positive. And since it's 4, it's going to be +1/4. That is my slope. And then I have my point. So I have a slope and I have a point, so I'm going to put it into slope-intercept. Y equals my slope, m times x plus b. I know that 1/4 times 4 is going to be 1. And then I plug everything else in. I'm going to subtract 1 on both sides. And b equals -2. Once you have your b value, once you have your y-intercept, we can put it into slope-intercept form. Y equals 1/4 x minus 2. And again, what this means is if we were to graph this line, and graph this line on graph paper or a graphing calculator, they would be perpendicular lines. All right, our next example is write an equation that is parallel and goes through the point and the slope. So I have an equation, y equals 2x, the same equation that I started with over here, and a point. Since I want my lines to be parallel, my slope is going to be the same, so I'm going to use 2 and 2. You don't flip it, you don't take the opposite. That's only with perpendicular. With parallel lines, they stay the same. I plug it into my slope-intercept form. I solve for b. In this case, b equals -6. Once you find your b value, you can plug it into your equation. Example 2. The slope is 1/2. Since I want a parallel line, I'm going to keep a slope of 1/2 and a point. Once you have a slope and a point, you can plug it into your equation and you can find the b value. I showed you this because look, this is the slope, this is the intercept when x is 0 and it's 4. But just in case you forget, you can plug it in and you still get b as 4. Once you find the b value, you plug it into your equation and you are good to go. What this means is if we typed this into our graphing calculator and we typed this into our graphing calculator, these lines would be parallel and they would not intersect. All right, example 3. I have an equation and I need a parallel line, so my slope is going to be -4 and I'm going to use this point. I plug it in and I get -4 times 3 is -12 plus b. I'm going to add 12 to both sides and b is 11. Once you find the b value, then we have the b and we have the m. So I can substitute in y equals m x plus b. And these two lines are parallel because they have the same slope. Alright? So the last example is it says, are these lines parallel, perpendicular, or neither? We have two sets of lines. We have to decide if those lines are parallel lines, if they're perpendicular lines, or if they're neither. So I put a star. Put into slope-intercept form to compare the slopes. That's what we have to do. We have to look at the slopes. If the slopes are the same, then they're going to be parallel. If the slopes are opposite reciprocals, they're going to be perpendicular. If the slopes are neither of those, then that's neither. So let's look at this first example. Y equals 3x plus 4. So my m is 3. Y equals -1/3 x minus 2, so my slope is -1/3. Now let's examine our slopes. We have a 3, we have a -1/3. Definitely they're opposites. Then you just have to decide if they're reciprocals. Are they flipped? And the answer is yes, these are flipped. They're opposite reciprocals, so these lines are perpendicular. Example 2. Y equals 1/2 x minus 5. So that means this slope is 1/2. This equation says x minus 2y equals 1. Alright, well it's not in slope-intercept form, so I need to come down here and put it into slope-intercept form, which means I need to subtract x from both sides, and I get -2y equals -x plus 1. Then I have to divide both sides by -2. This is a -1, right? -1 divided by -2. When you have two negatives, that's going to be a positive 1/2 x. And +1 divided by -2, that's going to be a -1/2. So now I have my equation as slope-intercept. My slope is 1/2. So I can come back up here and I can put my slope is 1/2. These slopes are the same, which means these lines are parallel. Example 3. I have one of the equations as a slope-intercept. So right here my slope is -2. Right here I need to convert this to slope-intercept form. I need to subtract 2x on both sides. Y equals -2x plus 7. Now it's in slope-intercept form, and I can see that the slope is -2. So now that I can see my slope is -2, -2, -2, that means that these are going to be parallel lines. So perpendicular, parallel, and parallel. We are going to practice more with parallel and perpendicular lines in class.